my name is Cherie. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this channel, I talk about living life abundantly by strengthening your relationship with Jesus Christ. We do a lot of inner work on this channel, so if that sounds interesting to you, please please like and subscribe. Okay, let's get into the video. In this video, I'm going to be coming from Psalm 107. And the title of this is Thanksgiving for God's Deliverance. And when I read this, like the first time I read through it, like I knew, I was like, oh, I have to do a Bible study on this. I just feel like it's really interesting. So it's 43 verses in this chapter, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to read like pieces here and there. So the first couple of verses, it says, let me start my timer. Okay. The first couple of verses, it says, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord proclaim that he has redeemed them from the power of the foe and has gathered them from the lands, from the east and the west, from the north and the south. When I read this, I think of that song. Well, first I think, oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, and he is good. And then I think of, let the redeemed of the Lord, I say so. And I was reading, I'm like, where'd I get that from? We just do that in there. But anyway, so reading from verse 4 to verse 9, starting from verse 4, it says, some wandered. And it just starts to talk about how people are wandered. And I feel like this psalm is kind of broken up into sections. So when sections meaning like different types of people and different type of like personalities of people. So you can kind of see where you fit in this, because there's one in verse 4 to 9. There's one in verse 10 to 16. There's one in verse 17 to 22. There's one in verse 23 to like 32. And then it stops there, and I thought it was super interesting. So from verse 4 to verse 9, it says some wander, and I think this is talking about people who are stubborn. So even like it'll come together at the end, hopefully. So so it talks about people who are stubborn, and it says, okay, how are people? So this is something I mentioned on my channel before. Like the way I do my Bible studies sometimes is when it says some wandered, I box the word wandered, and then I look for adjectives that describes what does it mean to wander. So when people wander, it says they find no way. They're hungry, they're thirsty, their spirits failed. And and it says they found no way to a city. So I feel like these are people who are lost, but people who are stubborn, meaning people who don't want to believe in the Lord. They just don't believe in him. So they don't have a way. They are hungry, they're thirsty, their spirits are failed, they're not satisfied with life. And it says, let them give thanks to the Lord for his faithful love and his wondrous works for all humanity, in verse 8. That's a verse that repeats a lot in this chapter. Then we're going to verse 10 to 16, and this is kind of where I found myself. This was kind of heavy. It says, others sat in darkness. So immediately when I think about sit in darkness, I think about depression. I've struggled with depression for many years, and to be transparent, I'm still on medication for it. And I feel like this year, I feel like has been a major breakthrough, just with like my relationship with the Lord. Like I just see major changes, and yeah. So anyway, going back to the verse, it says, so what does it look like when people sit in darkness? It says, or it also can be anxiety, which I feel like, I've struggled. I wouldn't say I struggle with anxiety, but I know what it feels like to be anxious. Sometimes I get so anxious, it goes to my stomach, and like I get physically sick. So I feel like both depression and anxiety, they are so similar, but they're so opposite at the same time. I feel like for depression, you don't want to do anything. Anxiety, you can function, you can still do everything, but you're like ding, 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 ding the whole time. And it just doesn't feel good. Neither feels good. But a person who is either depressed or anxious, it says that they are prisoners because they rebelled against God's commands and despised the counsel of the Most High. He broke their spirits, they stumbled, and he saved them from their distress, and he broke their chains apart. And I'm like, if that doesn't describe what it feels like, depression feels like, I don't know what else does. And even to the point where like they stumble and he broke their spirits. And it's like, I think that you don't want to, he didn't break, okay, how do I want to describe this? When it says he breaks their spirits, I think of it more as the flesh part. Because depression and anxiety, it's very selfish. It's about me, how I think, how I feel, me. I gotta do this, I gotta do that. I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. You're really in your own head and you really think about yourself a lot. And you know, I'm not trying to like downplay it. Like I do believe there are certain like chemicals and imbalances, especially depending on what you eat, depending on how you train your brain. I think that there is a lot of science behind it, so I'm not trying to like downplay it, obviously, but I do think that it is a huge flesh component to depression and anxiety. And I think in order for him to lift us up, he has to break us down first, and then he can lift us up and break our chains. It says that. And in verse 15, it says, let them give thanks to the Lord for his faithful love and his wondrous works for all humanity. And then and after that, it says he has broken down the bronze gates and cut through iron bars. When I think of that, I think of a prison. Depression and anxiety, it's like you're living in a prison, and the Lord is able. He's the only one who's able to get you out of that. And I am a witness for it. And I don't even care if I'm still on medicine. I'm not going to be on medicine forever. I do know that. And I do know that I see his hand in my life with my depression, because I can still be on medication and still not be functioning and still be depressed. But I know that like, well, depending on my mood that day, because I'm still human, but like people can look at me and they will never think like, oh, she suffered with depression, or oh, she's on medication. And I think that's because of the Lord. I don't think it, I know it. Okay, so moving on. We only got 3 minutes. Okay, so verses 17 to 22, it talks about people who think they know it all. So it says, fools suffered affliction. And that's the part that I boxed. And it says, because of their rebellious ways, their iniquities, they came near the gates of death. They cried out to the Lord. He saved them from distress. He sent word and healed them. He rescued them from the pit. And this to me is also kind of represents an unsaved person. And it says, let them give thanks to the Lord for his faithful love and his wondrous works for all humanity. So if you look at these like patterns, it talks about the type of person, the type of deliverance the Lord gives them. And regardless of what they've been through, or their deliverance, it says, let them give thanks to the Lord for his faithful love. The Lord, I can't remember where I read this, but the Lord, what did it say? He loves to have faithful love. He actually, I can't remember the word, like he desires it, he wants it. And if you think about us, like, do we want to have faithful love just as a human race in general? Like when people do us wrong, we are quick to cut them off. But the Lord, he delights in having faithful love. He delights in us coming back to him. So it talks about, so just to summarize really quick, the stubborn person, the depressed or anxious person, the person who think they know it all. And then the last kind of section is, I think, what represents people searching for answers outside of God, like other religious beliefs and other religions and other beliefs. It says, others went to sea in ships. They saw the Lord's works, his wondrous works in the deep. But they reeled and they staggered like a drunkard, and their skill was useless. And so if you think about a drunk person, when you think about a drunk person, whatever they're doing in that moment, while they're under the influence, they think it's a great idea and they have all the confidence in the world. And then once they come back to their sober minds, they can look and say, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? What was I doing? Why did I do that? Ha ha ha, whatever. Hopefully it's a ha 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 moment and not a, oh no, what did I do moment? But hopefully it's none of the moments. Hopefully none of the above. But this to me represents people who search for God outside of Jesus, because they think what they're doing is the best thing, but it's useless, because the only way is Jesus. He is the only living God. There's no other God who died and rose again. Only him. He is the only way. And then it says towards the end, verse 31, let them give thanks to the Lord for his faithful love and his wondrous works for all humanity. And the chapter goes on to talk about, it talks about nature and it talks about humanity. In verse 43, the end, it says, let whoever is wise pay attention to these things and consider the Lord's acts of faithful love. So this chapter, it really just hones in on God's faithful love, and I'm going to try not to cry. Calm down, Sheree. But he really is faithful, and there is no better way than him. And if you have not accepted him into your life, I highly consider you to. And I'm not saying that everything will be easy and breezy, but imagine already being on a winning team, going through life when you know it's not easy, you know it's not breezy, but you know in the end that you have the victory, because he already has the victory. I heard a pastor say before, we are playing a game that's rigged because we already win in the end. So no matter what is happening, no matter what things feel like, no matter what things look like, if you believe in Jesus Christ, if he is your savior, know that you win in the end. And I hope that this was helpful. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment any other Bible studies that you would like to see. Remember, I love you, I'm here for you, and I'm praying for you. Bye.